All right, welcome to TBCN Unplugged. My name is John, and we are here with a very good friend of mine, Jason Stevens. Jason works at KelbyOne Media. What is your title there?
Director of video production.
Video production. Okay, so you're director, and what do they do at Kelby? They're a training.
Yeah, we make training videos for photographers.
Right. Okay. And so you are the director and
yeah. So I'll go out and I'll well, we have a studio in Oldsmar, and then we also travel to go to exotic locations with the photographer. And so we either bring in the photographers to our studio or go on location with them, and then I will basically record how they create their art.
Okay.
We're a subscription service.
Right. Many photographers will basically pay a subscription fee to
Correct.
join so they can see that all this content, and there's like thousands probably.
Yeah, it's 1,000.
Yeah.
KelbyOne.com. Besides the subscription, now I think you can actually just purchase a specific
One class. Yeah.
You know, if you're
course.
like, I just want to see this, you can buy that straight up.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a long road to Kelby for you.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as
I didn't bring my resume.
you didn't bring your resume. Well,
I should have.
I happen to have your resume right here, actually. ChatGPT is my friend, and all I do is put in some basic info about you, and it spits out all these questions. So
Awesome.
I cheat a little bit, but you know, that's the world we're in.
No,
today.
I am all about AI.
Yeah,
I actually want to be plugged in myself.
yeah. You should check it out. It's great for writing scripts. Of course, it's not going to give you exactly what you need. You got to tweak it a little bit.
Right.
So there's a little bit of cheating going on, but there's still a lot of human element in it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
It's cool.
So it's a very good tool. So tell us about your journey, starting with where you went to school and all of that.
So I first wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
And so I went to Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I took my first private pilot classes, and I get motion sickness. So I was like, okay, this is not going to work.
You didn't know that before you started?
No, that's the only thing I blame my parents.
Yeah.
I love my mom and dad, but that's the only thing I wish they put me in a plane before I went to school for it.
Oh, you never had even been in a plane?
Not a small one.
Not
like
a small
that.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't horrible,
Yeah.
but it was enough to know that's not what I want to do for a career.
Yeah.
Right. So I pushed through, and I actually did get my pilot's license.
Okay.
But during that, it was 1 year, my freshman year. During that year, I joined the radio station, and I just started, and I loved Howard Stern
At school?
at school.
Yeah.
And it was an AM, and it would just broadcast to the dorm rooms.
Okay.
So,
Thank goodness.
and yeah, so I was really into Howard Stern at the time,
Yeah.
and I wanted the shock, and so I started doing that, and then transferred to Brockport, New York,
Okay.
which had a communications degree, and I started in radio there until I got suspended for my content, and then and that's when I started my television classes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So basically, it was like community radio,
Correct.
but college. Was it broadcast over the?
In New York, it was broadcast in the local neighborhood. Yeah,
Yikes.
just
Okay.
a small one. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So then it was a four-year college.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I was able to transfer my credits from Embry-Riddle to be able to graduate in 4 years.
Okay. So what was your first job in the business?
R News, which is just like Bay News 9 down here.
Okay.
Yep.
In
So
what? Is it Syracuse?
Rochester, New York.
Rochester. Okay.
Yeah, so it was a
Right.
24-hour cable news channel with weather
Okay.
on the nines. The whole works like you guys got down here.
Okay.
And so I worked there for a year, loved it. Just fell in love with television production just in general. Like I like doing all of it. Like I started actually more audio, and then and then I was watching, as an audio op, you work with the directors.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to be a director. You know, I did master control. I actually did all the jobs. Like I did cameraman, teleprompter. Back then you'd have all the different jobs.
Right.
Right. Graphics.
Right.
You know, so
There wasn't robotic cameras yet.
No,
probably. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So I experimented with all the different types of jobs in this realm, and I was able to come down to Florida on vacation, and I called Bay News 9, the manager there, and I said, hey, you know, I'm working with the affiliate station up in Rochester. I'd like to come and just tour your station. And so I went and I toured with them, and I gave them my resume after I toured. I was like, hey, I would be really interested in moving down here to Florida. If you needed any help, you know, let me know. And sure enough, like within, I think it was like 2 months, he contacted me, and they had a position open as an audio operator.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did a transfer down to Bay News 9 from our news.
Oh, so it was a lateral move. You didn't. Yep. You basically stayed with the company.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then that's where I got to talk a little bit about them. I signed a 3-year contract as an audio op, making $8.50 an hour.
I forgot they had those contracts.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And I felt locked in. Like after I signed it, I mean, they did. I shouldn't complain because they did get me to Florida because it's hard to move out of state and get a nice job. So I was able to accomplish that goal, but to be locked in with such a low pay, you know, like that sucked.
But you got your foot in the door, you know. And I tell people all the time, you know, we have training here at TBCN, and we try to assist people in finding jobs in the industry. You know, so people will come here, they'll take the 20 classes, and they'll be like, okay, I want to get a job. And it's like, okay, well, you want to volunteer with us? No, I don't want to volunteer. I just want a job. And it's just like, the business doesn't kind of work that way. Right. You know, you kind of got to pay your dues a little bit. Right. You know, and so you might have to take a job that's, well, you know.
And that's where I met you.
Yeah.
So John and I met at Bay News 9. That's how it's all started.
That's how it all started. Yeah, I didn't know anybody. I had moved from California, and I was just an editor. And Jason come in. Nobody would talk to me. And Jason's friendly. He came in and started talking to me. We became friends, and then we both left around the same time. And I went to a public access station, not TBCN, but a different one. And Jason came and we did a public access show together called Scream at the Wall.
Yep. And that was, John approached, so work at Bay News 9, that was fun. And that's where I transitioned to directing. Yeah. You know, that's where I learned how to direct basically in that type of environment. And then John and I, we're just creative. Right. And we like to have a good time, and that's why we got along. We're like, John pitched me. He's like, we got these public access classes and stuff. So I came and checked out the public access station, and I was like, you know, I'll do one. And then we had another friend that was helping us, Mike. Right. But we made this Scream at the Wall, it was called. It was basically a comedy show. Variety. I would say variety because it wasn't all comedy. We would do some music videos.
I could remember the first episode, you jumping out of a plane.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yep.
Can you tell us about how that was and how that came about?
But that particular one, WB38, that was a startup with Sinclair Broadcast. But I went in there as a director. It was basically my first job that I got hired as a director.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And so we had a really small staff, and Yolanda Vaz, she was an amazing reporter. And she had this cool story about skydiving, and they offered to her for her to skydive. Okay. And she came to me and she's like, I don't want to skydive, but Jason, if you came along, would you do it? And I'm like, well, yeah. And so I went and I jumped out of the plane and in Zephyr Hills, Florida. Okay. And they recorded it. And I got the recording and everything. It was all for her story. Yeah. And I got back to the station and they're like, Jason, you gotta go see the manager. And then the next person, hey, Jason, you gotta go see the manager. And I rolled in, and he's like, listen, he's like, I like you. He's like, but you cannot skydive on work hours.
Yeah, we're not insured for that, probably. You're having too much fun at work.
Yeah. But that was a cool. But yeah, we used it for public access. Okay. And then we did several skits that were hysterical. At least we thought were funny. Yeah. And music videos, I did The Innocent. Remember that one? It was in downtown Clearwater.
Oh, right. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah,
I got to dig that up.
Yeah, that was a multi-camera production that we did. Yes. So I was dabbling, as John did too, like freelance. So I was dabbling in like music videos.
Yeah.
That was when I really got into edit. Public access got me to edit.
When you're stuck working in news, for instance, or at HSN, something to where you can't be creative, you need an outlet to be creative. Something nice to put on your reel so you can show people that you can do different things.
Right.
You know?
No, exactly.
So and you've done a lot of different jobs in TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, you know, it's good to stay with a company. But I don't know. This business is different, I think.
Well, that being said, I agree. I agree with you. And times are changing too. I'm seeing it in front of my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, things aren't the way they used to be. But in our day, that was absolutely the case. Like I made that comment about the $8.50 an hour.
Yeah.
Back then, they would give you a 10-cent raise after a year. So now I was making $8.60 an hour. So if I wanted to make let's just $9.50 an hour, a dollar or more raise, I would have to jump jobs.
Yeah.
And that was a sad, but it was totally true.
Yeah.
And so I kept jumping each year. I'd be like, hey, I want a decent pay raise, and they wouldn't do it. And I'm like, all right. And then I move on to the next one.
Once you get that first job on your resume, it's fairly easy if you're a good tech and you have a personality. By the way, in this business goes a long way.
Correct. Yeah,
you have to be able to, because you know, I was told, I talked about it in my last podcast. One news station I worked for, they said there were 95 applicants, and they hired me. And I was like, wow. I was like, you know, my resume was no better than anybody else's. You know, but it's just personality, I think, goes a long way in this business.
Yeah, and the other thing, you have to be able to accept constructive criticism.
Oh, yeah.
And no, for real. Like, you really have to have a thick skin. Like, you can't be, like, if you make something that's really awesome and then a producer comes in and hates it, you can't be offended.
Right.
You just have to change it. Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of it. It's like, I was like, okay, what would you like?
Right.
You know? But, and I almost, like, I cheated that a few times where I'd almost make something crappy so then I could get to where I wanted it easier.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, that's way better.
Way better, yeah. There was news jobs. You worked at HSN for a short time, right?
Yeah, Home Shopping Network. And they've gone through lots of changes, too, in the last few years. Like, QVC bought them out and management, you name it. But the period of time I was there, I did enjoy HSN. It was... I learned a lot there. They had the robotic cameras. So basically, there's a big control room. You have a graphics operator, the audio op, a camera guy that's operating 3 robotics, and then you would have maybe, if it's depending on the type of what you're recording, someone on the floor that would do like a jib or even.
So it's a relatively automated small crew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're
24 hours too.
Yeah, and they had multiple studios back then. I don't even dare to say, but there was more than 5 studios, I think.
Okay.
And you'd go in, and at that time I was directing, so there's 10-hour shifts, and I do 4 10-hour shifts, 3 days off. And then during those 10-hour shifts, you'd be on 3 hours, 2 hours off, prepare, and then on 3 hours.
Okay.
And that's how it kind of worked.
So you just did production. You didn't do any editing.
No, just directing in that one. The only thing I didn't like about there, and that's why I moved on from there, was the shift work. I mean, it was just the shift. It was 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. or something.
It's kind of a sweatshop in video production terms.
Yeah, I was always exhausted, and then on my days off, I always try to go back to a normal schedule, and then you're exhausted going back to work. So I never felt rested or normal during that job, and that's the only reason I left them. But as far as video production, highly recommend them. They were I mean, they got all the best equipment. They had money, right? So they had money to buy good stuff, and you learned on good equipment.
And they kind of like to hire people without a lot of experience, so they can show you their way. Also, they can pay you less.
Correct.
But I can see, you know, I applied there a lot of times and never got even a response.
Oh wow!
And I think maybe because I had too much experience. I don't know. They had no idea how old I was. You know, but by the experience, they can say, "Oh, yeah, this guy's 40 years old." You know,
which they shouldn't do.
No, it's
right?
It's a little bit of a discrimination,
right?
But I think, you know, I know a lot of times for different positions, there's multiple, you know, like there could be 100 applicants. So they got to kind of see, okay, who's going to stick around, you know? So yeah, sometimes experience works against you.
Right.
But most of the time it works for you, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, that and then at HSN, that's again through public access. So you guys, public access is where the editing, I fell in love with editing.
That's where I was going to ask you.
So you make stories and you can maneuver things and how people like view it. And I just fell in love with that. And when public access gave me the most experience in editing, where when I left HSN, I went into infomercials. And that's
right.
Majority of that work was editing. That's
where you got most of your editing experience, was working, doing infomercials, right? Right.
Yeah, and infomercials, that was a whole different world, which there was good and bad in that world. I worked in it for several years. Overall, I liked it. I did not like the cheating, the manipulation of products that weren't good, and just ripping people off. Like there was a lot of things that weren't good products that we were making them look amazing.
Yeah.
Right? We would drop
more amazing than they actually were.
Right. Yeah. Perfect example, there was this thing called a dual drill, and we're like, oh, it's so tough, and you'd throw it off the building and it'd bounce and it'd work. And we broke like probably 20 of them before one didn't break.
Yeah.
And that was the one we showed.
Yeah.
Right? But that's total, it was, yeah.
It's like a lot of the as seen on TV products.
Right.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
It was as seen. That's exactly what we were doing, as seen on TV. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so now you're an experienced editor and experienced director, producer.
Yep.
Where do you go from there? Can you remember?
Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say, because I was thinking about this other day, like you always get that when you're starting out, what's your 5-year goal or your 10-year goal, and what do you want to be and what do you want to be? And I actually have maneuvered to where I want to be. So right now, I'm not saying that this is the only thing I'll ever do, but I am content right now in doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like it, because the best thing what I do now is working with these photographers, like I'm learning from them. So it's a job where I'm working, but I'm also learning all the time.
Because you had a little experience in photography when you started at Kelby, but nothing to the degree where you are now.
When I look at my pictures before Kelby to now, I was like, oh God, what was I thinking there? You know, and not that it was horrible, but it's like now I see things that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
You know, you can see like a composition and you take out distracting elements. That's the biggest thing. Like my pictures from before, there's lots of distractions in there.
Yeah.
Like there'd be a branch and now I know that branch has to go.
Yeah.
So I'll take it out versus before I just leave it in because I'd be like, oh, that's what it really looked like.
Yeah.
But now you got to take out those power lines. You have to take out the branches.
Yeah.
You have to focus on the subject and create a story with a picture.
A lot of the elements of photography transfer over to video very well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you know, I see like rookie videographers, and they'll just point a camera and shoot without even thinking about the framing and without even thinking about, you know, what the audience is seeing.
Right.
You know, and photography is the same way.
Yeah.
Except video's 30. Well, actually now it's 60 frames a second.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so there's a lot of manipulation. There's in video. There's you're not going to rotoscope stuff. you're going to get what you record.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually 2 days before I came here, I just did clone out video in my project. There was an antenna on a shot behind my boss, and it was a steady shot, so I just cloned it out.
So you mean like you mask it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Masked it out with video with a cloud, and it would look just like I would do in a photo.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually still do that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just to make it look better. I didn't have to.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, that antenna doesn't need to be there.
That's bugging me. I have a little bit. Talk about editing software. When you first started editing, what system were you using? Avid?
Avid is mostly because that's where Bay News 9, they did a contract with them. And so, most of my early days was all Avid.
Okay. And then what happened with Avid? I think I know, but
Well, they're still around. It just, the fact is they're not cheap.
yeah.
You know, that was the biggest thing. You have to be in their whole realm of buying all this external hardware.
They sell turnkey systems.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so Adobe just, you know, they took over because everyone needed Photoshop anyway. And they're like, oh, let's put it in Premiere. And then those are two things that you could get with one subscription service. Yeah. And so that was it. I mean, I fought it, but like, again, today I just set up a new computer and I still use Avid settings.
Right.
So even in Premiere, there's still your keyboard to set up like Avid.
Yeah.
Because it's a 3-point style editing. I still do it. Like the guys at work.
You do ins and outs.
They're dragging and stuff, which is fine. There's multiple ways to do it, but I still do ins and outs.
That's because that's how you were. That's what you used to. I mean, it doesn't matter what software you use to get the job done, as long as it at the end it looks, you know, the product looks how you want it to look.
Everyone needs to be like me and edit like me, right? When I look at something, and that has changed. I was like, okay, there's multiple ways to get something done, but like when we have a freelancer at KelbyOne, I want the edit so I can maneuver it how I edit it. So I did make that decision for our freelancers. I was like, okay, you need to do this multicam editing and put your project in like this. Now we have an editor right now that's on staff that doesn't do multicam editing, which is fine, right? But when I'm bringing in projects that I need to go through quickly, I don't need to mess around with trying to figure out how they edit it. I just want to be like, all right, there's the multicam. This can't shot better than this one, and blah blah blah. So I am open-minded to it, and I'm not saying my way's the best. You know me. Like I've always been like, hey, if you can show me a better way to do it, show me a better way to do it, and I do. But today I do like the multicam the best.
I used multicam in Premiere for quite a long time, but now I use with Blackmagic products, the ATEM. When I shoot something, I'm switching multi-camera. So now I get a timeline that's already cut.
Perfect.
So, which is nice.
Right.
So I don't know how to use multicam.
Well, we kind of do the same thing. So when we're doing in studio, we have a TriCaster.
Okay.
So same thing. So I'm actually doing a line cut, switching it, and then if there's a major mistake, I'll go back to the raw, but I'll put the line cut in a multicam.
So the all your cameras are being isolated. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I got the line cut on top. There's cut together with the cameras underneath it.
Okay.
And then if there's a mistake, I can see what the line cut was, or go to a different camera if I wanted to.
Gotcha. Okay.
Chose to. Yeah.
All right. Sorry, folks. Tech talk.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, you know, like back then you were all in on Avid, and I was like, no, Adobe Premiere, Premiere's up and going.
We did give me some credit because I did do Final Cut for a little bit too.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Me too.
So I just liked Avid. I liked the structure of Avid.
Yeah.
And there's certain tools in Avid that even Premiere to date doesn't have them. Like, oh God, why don't they make this tool? Right. But I've been able to maneuver Premiere just as well as now I'm better at Premiere than I ever was at Avid because I've been on it for so long.
Now you can teach me a thing or two, I'm sure.
But back when I first went from the transition from Avid to Premiere, it wasn't too bad. It was maybe a month, and then I started getting my groove on.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, there's a couple little struggles right in the beginning. I'm like, oh God, why can't I do it like this? And then you're like, okay, you can do it, but you got to do it like this. Yeah, you know,
it's really hard now. Like here at the station, we train on DaVinci.
Okay.
And
I've read it on that too.
And DaVinci is awesome because to an extent it's a free software.
Correct.
You know, Blackmagic tries to get you tries to sell you products to, you know, to use your editor with and things like that, like the ATEM and software, and they have Blackmagic cameras now. So I get where they're coming, but so do you down the road? I mean, I don't know if Premiere is maybe going to take a back seat in the consumer field to DaVinci. It seems like everybody's using DaVinci now because it's a free
I've heard
software.
a few people, and I've used it a few times, but I can't see us moving to it unless there is a major hiccup with Premiere.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it. It's just because all the buttons are in a different way. And I've taken the classes here at TBCN. I highly recommend taking editing classes, but you don't become an editor after 3 classes. And so
Correct.
For me to get comfortable with DaVinci, I would have to stick with it.
Right.
You know, and it's just, you know, what normally would take me 10 minutes would take me an hour in DaVinci because I just don't know where all the buttons are.
Well, and I think DaVinci is so powerful because of the amazing color correction they have. Yeah. But Premiere is integrating all that too. Yeah. So now it's like they're watching, you know, so I'm doing very similar color correction I did in DaVinci and Premiere now.
Right.
Right. I mean, Photoshop is it, and Lightroom now too. So Lightroom and Photoshop are hand in hand. So unless something dramatically changes and takes over those and an edit,
right.
That's why we're doing, like we were saying earlier, it's all a package of everything you would need. And Audition, Adobe Audition. So if I have sound problems, I'm in Audition, After Effects, right? Again, the whole suite has everything I would ever need. I rarely go out, except I do use plugins.
Okay.
I do use Boris Effects.
Okay.
And that was
that's still around.
That was all Avid too back in the day.
Wow.
And no, we have the Boris Effects suite.
Okay.
I still use their transitions and some of their effects on the video.
Even DaVinci has, I won't say they have more effects, but they have different effects.
Right.
You know, and transitions get old real quick.
Correct.
You know, so I'm always looking for new transitions.
Yep.
You know, without being too flashy and looking unprofessional. Because, by the way, you know, if you want to show people you're an amateur, use like a bunch of different effects, star wipes and things like, you want to keep it pretty clean.
Right, yeah.
But I do like to experiment with different types of transitions. And so that's why I kind of like DaVinci.
Yeah.
But it would take me a long time to be proficient in it. Mm-hmm. So now tell me a little bit about your personal interests as far as outside. I know you like fast cars.
Oh yeah, so
you like music.
Yeah, I'm getting older. So I've been he's right. Like I was Need for Speed all the way. I just had a Shelby, Ducati Monster. So you name it, I was being a little crazy on the roads, and I'm 48 now. So I'm officially saying I'm done with all that. I've come really close to getting in big trouble, and I actually sold my Mustang probably about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And then I'm selling my motorcycle now.
I was going to ask you about the motorcycle.
Yeah, I'm selling it. So it was fun, and I'm lucky I never got in big trouble or hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys see it like every day. There's like these huge accidents. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think Florida is like Tampa, Florida is one of the worst cities in the entire United States for two wheels as far as fatalities go.
I'm not surprised. And people really take risks.
Mm-hmm.
It scares me when I see somebody splitting a lane. It's like, well, what if I just decided to stick my hand out? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen it. I've almost got smushed. And even with the car, it's when you have that much, and I'm not saying I'm never going to get a sports car again, but I just feel like I upped my car so fast that it was meant to be on a racetrack. So when you accelerate and you can get up to 100 like this, it can get very dangerous on a real road.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're trying to get away from all that.
Yeah, I just don't want to be in trouble or hurt.
Or worse than hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's been horrible things here as far as accidents go with people racing and stuff. And I see that. I'm not stupid. I've taken risks, and I'm over it. The other than that is I love music. So I was just telling you before we got on, there's this program Suno, which is an AI software for music.
Okay.
And
so like
oh my God,
GarageBand on steroids.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So you plug in, it's just like your Chat GPT, and then you plug in, you maneuver it. You know. So I'm like, okay, I want 120 beats per minute. I want rock, and then I want deep bass.
Is it free?
There's a free version,
Okay.
but I paid for, I think it was like, it wasn't that crazy. It was like $100 for the year, and you get 5,000 credits.
Wow.
And then when you make a song, it takes the credits away.
Okay.
So I made my first song that I was happy with, and it cost me almost 1,000 credits.
Can we hear a little bit of the song?
Maybe, yeah. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah. The fade up music.
But no, it's fun. It's fun to actually make music like that, because I'm not. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a composer. Right. So I know what I want, though. And that's what this does. Like, I can tell it. Like I would.
Well, you're not a musician per se.
I'm not.
You don't play any musical instruments.
No. But I know. I was like, I want to break here, and I want a guitar riff here, and I like this type of drum beat. I know what I like.
Yeah.
So when you can type that in, and then it makes a song for you, oh my goodness, this changes everything. And I was telling my other friend the other day, and he hates it. He is a musician. He is a composer. He's like, this is ruining everything. And it's just like with Photoshop and these photographers that get so mad over it. I mean, yeah, I could go hire a band to create this music for me. It's the same thing. But now I can just do it through a virtual platform.
You really do embrace technology.
I do. Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
For someone like me to be able to make a song with $100. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Back in the day when I was making music, it cost thousands, right? To make an album and stuff. But now you can do I've made 2 songs now, and I'm not even close to burning up all my credits.
Okay.
So I'm guessing I'd be able to make at least an EP with the credits for $100.
Would you recommend something like that to make royalty-free music for yourself?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I didn't even think of that. Like, we should make our own custom open for.
Ooh, maybe I'll do one for this.
For Unplugged, yeah. Because we have the cheesy soft, music bed that came with the software. Yep. So okay. That'd be a nice little side project.
This, I can't say enough about. You like make a little segment, and then you thumbs up or thumbs down, and then you keep tweaking it, and then you say you like it from a minute to a minute 10 seconds. That's good, right? Yeah. You're like, that's good, and then it goes off where you don't like it.
Like with most AI products, the more information you give it, the more you get out of it.
Correct.
What advice would you give to aspiring videographers and photographers looking to break into the industry?
What we're saying, embrace the technology. Don't be afraid of it. If you're going to argue and say, I'm not doing that, you're not going to get hired.
Yeah. So
embrace it. I know it can be scary. It's not really scary. It's just, let me put it this way. Back in the day when I first started, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm like so good at this Beta SP deck. I know every menu of this thing, and I can edit this Beta SP to this Beta SP. Yeah. And remember we turned the knobs and everything, and boo, and in, out. Yep. And I thought it was so
linear editing.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool, and I was going to have a job for the rest of my life because I was so good at it. Yeah. And it's non-existent.
It's not
even like you can't even see.
All the millennials out there are saying, "What?" I know people that are out of the business now because they didn't embrace technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I myself got out of the business for a few years. Yeah. But I'm back, and now I'm having to kind of play catch up.
Yeah,
because there are things that have changed in the 5 or 6 years I've been out of the business, So I'm learning.
Well, the other
you never stop.
Right,
learning.
You never stop there. And the other thing is don't concentrate on being an expert on anything, because as soon as you're an expert, it changes on you. So I'm not saying don't do a crappy job, right? Yeah. Don't be like, oh, I'm not going to learn all of it, but don't get so hung up on being an expert. Because you don't need to be an expert, because it's going to change. So be proficient in what you're doing up to that level, and then let it go. Like don't. I used to hang on. Oh my God, I'm going to be such an expert at Avid. Yeah. And look at me now. I'm on a whole different platform. Yeah. So that does not work anymore. You can't be an expert in anything in this industry. Right. In my opinion.
No, you're right.
I put a lot of if.
Well, and I've learned too. I've learned exactly that. I mean. There are times where you can take your time and be creative, and then there's times where you just got to get the job done.
Correct.
So you could easily spend, a month on a project or more where it could have been done in 3 days.
Correct.
So you can't become too married to a project. You got to do the best you can and then move on. Okay, so you do a lot of traveling.
Yes.
Which is awesome. That's like a dream job.
Yeah.
I mean, but does it get to the point where you want to just be home?
Yeah, no, it is exhausting. It really is. I mean,
you go all over the
I'm
world.
not complaining at all.
Yeah.
I love it, and that's one of the reasons I love my job so much is because I get to experience all these really cool trips. I just got back from Santorini, Greece for work.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And you get a little bit of time to have some personal time too, right?
Yeah, usually, because obviously when you first go, it's stressful because you're like, I want to do such a good job. They're investing in me to go to a foreign country to make this product. That product better be good, right?
Yeah.
So that type of stress hung on me where I didn't really enjoy the surroundings as much as I could have, right? And because I was so stressed on making everything so perfect. And now I've done a few that I'm like, okay, enjoy your surroundings. Enjoy the trip. Enjoy the trip as much as you can while you're doing your work. I'm still, want to do the best job as possible, but I'm reflecting on, hey, I'm here. I'm in Greece. I'm in Prague. I'm in all these other places they've been sending me. And I can take it in and be like, listen, because the very first trip I remember, I came back home and I was like, what happened?
Right.
Like, I don't remember the day. It was a blur.
Yeah.
And I would go through the footage. I'm like, oh, I kind of remember that. I remember that. It was so much. And now I'm like, okay, I remember the days and I can go back and reflect on the footage and be like, oh, I remember that.
And now you have time to, especially when you have time off, you can go and take pictures.
Correct.
You probably at first you didn't take the time to do that, but now you have personal time.
Right.
You have all the time to take your own pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the way it works out is so let's just say the overseas trip. So we hit the road, and I'll just do Greece because we just did it. So we left Friday morning here for Tampa. It was 11:30 a.m. was the flight out of Tampa. Flew to Boston, layover in Boston, barely make it to the overseas, and that airport is horrible as far as the airport. And so we barely made our international flight. I didn't even have time to get a drink or use the restroom before I was on an international flight.
Oh, my God.
From the other flight.
Yeah.
That's how disorganized it was. But I got on sweating and did this huge flight to Athens. And then we did another layover going through customs and then flew from there to Santorini. So by the time you calculate all the flights, the layovers, everything, you're looking at a 22-hour travel.
Wow.
Get to the hotel that's a half hour away from the airport in a foreign country with a cab driver that told me he was smoking 5 blunts before he picked us up. Not making this up.
Uh-oh.
And then we get to the hotel, and then we get 2 hours of sleep, and then start working.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon.
Right, and that's where, it's like being healthy, eating healthy food, not overdoing doing caffeine at the right times, because if you overdo it, the caffeine doesn't work anymore. So
really,
yeah, it just you just get like a weird realm that just you're not thinking right.
Yeah.
So
Sleep is very important.
I would get that 2 hour nap, and then I drink a cup of coffee, and then go, and then get it done, and then get a good sleep. But my boss Scott, he's traveled. He's a million miler, so he's been all over the entire world. There's not a country that I know he hasn't been. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
And so he was the one who said you hit it running when you get, especially that way with the time difference, because then you get on their time. So the next day you're like, okay, you wake up in the morning on their time, and it's an easier transition than trying to fight it where you get there and sleep 8 hours and then you're still backwards to their time zone. So I do agree with him on that. So that's how we do it. And then the next day we get a decent night's sleep, start up in the morning again, and then we're on their time for 2 days. So usually these shoots are about 3 days. ish,
Yeah.
2.5 days, and then they'll give me like a day to recover before I fly home. Scott does workshops too, so he's my boss, Scott Kelby. He's the owner of the company.
Okay.
So he does these workshops. There are 14 people, and he is training on photography again. Yeah. So while I go out to record Scott to record a training class, he's scouting for his workshop. So he's doing two things at the same time. Yeah. Right? So he's scouting, and then he gets a nice spot. I'm like, okay, let's record a lesson for the training video. Right? So that's how we kind of maneuver that. And then when I'm leaving, he's starting his workshop.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he's
stays.
a workaholic.
Yeah.
I've never worked for any person that works more than Scott.
Wow.
Yeah, he's always working.
He's always moving on from one project to the next to the next.
Yep. Yeah. Writing books. He's got over 50 books.
Tell us a funny story about your travels.
So I was in Arizona with Eric Kuna. And again, Eric Kuna is like the project manager.
Okay.
So he's under Scott, and he's an amazing photographer. He does, they call him the Rocket Man. So he actually shoots rockets taking off at Cape Canaveral, goes to Texas, shoots their engine. Like he's big time.
Photography.
Yeah, photography.
Okay.
And he's made a name for himself in that realm.
Okay.
And those people that love rockets, they love rockets. They're looking at every single launch.
Okay.
Right? So he's out there all the time taking pictures of rockets taking off. But in this particular one, so it's kind of the same realm. He's into Milky Way, night photography. Okay. So it all kind of is in the same thing. And so this was a Milky Way class in Arizona. And he picks these spots which are the darkest places in America. And that's where you get the best Milky Way,
right?
You know, as far as being able to see it, the least light pollution.
Right.
So this particular one, he mapped out, and he's very intelligent, and he mapped out that the light pollution from Phoenix would actually light up the Superstition Mountains with the Milky Way behind it. In the dark zone.
Okay.
And he was right.
How far was it from Phoenix?
Oh, God, it's got to be 30 miles maybe.
Okay, just enough. Yeah.
So he was absolutely right. The mountain was lit up, and it's a huge mountain. Superstition Mountain is enormous. But he had this Milky Way over the mountain. The shot was so cool. So there's this other photographer, Rami Kazemi. He also does landscape photographers. So this particular one, it was Eric and Rami were there. So Eric and Rami in front of me, and we're walking up the Superstitious Mountains to get a shot of the mountain. And it was off trail, and there's cactuses everywhere. And there was a barbed wire fence. So they just jumped over it. And they're much taller than me. I got short legs. And so they both leaped over it, and I'm hauling 30 pounds of gear on my backpack. And I start to go over, and I'm like halfway over. I realize that I'm not going to make it. Like it just wasn't, my legs weren't long enough. And so I start turning back, and my backpack swung me around into a cactus.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it went through my face, all the way down my side, through my leg, the whole works. Like it was bad. And I'm laying there just with them all stuck in me. And
like a porcupine.
Yeah, Eric came back, and his face said it all. Like I knew I messed myself up, because he's always happy. And he was like, oh my, like he didn't even say anything. He was just like in shock. Oh, he's got to be bad. And then we were so remote at that time because we already hiked maybe 3 miles in. So we're really far away from even our car.
Yeah.
So
what time of year was it?
Probably like September-ish.
Okay. So it was probably still pretty warm.
It's still hot. Yeah. It's a desert. But yeah, it wasn't like summer. But so I'm laying there, and we all start pulling them out of my skin at the same time. I'd be like 3, 2, 1, and we'd all pull, and they'd stretch your skin and come out. And I found out later that I was super lucky, because that cactus that I actually fell in was an older one.
Oh yeah.
If it was younger one, I would have been airlifted, and they would have had to surgically remove them, because they stick in your skin that much. These ones were able to pull out. It still sucked.
They were old. So they were old needles.
They were old needles. Yeah, it still was horrible.
Oh my God.
So we're pulling them all out, and we're getting in a groove. And I think my body just accepted that I messed up, and so I was numb. Like it went from hurting really bad to just being numb.
Yeah.
Because it was so much stimulation, I guess. And then at the very end, I was like, listen, Eric, I never thought I had to say this at work, but I need to drop my pants. And so I dropped my pants and I pulled them out of my own butt.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I got them out, and then we finally got back to the room, and then Rami actually had to do the final touches and tweezering them out of my head.
Oh my God.
With a tweezer, yeah, because there was little tiny ones.
Do you have any pictures of the needles
No,
inside?
You know what's funny is they're both photographers,
Yeah.
Eric and Rami. I'll see if I can find some. I know I got a picture of the cactus, but they're both photographers, and this time they didn't take a picture because they were both in shock.
They were being serious for once.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, like Jason's messed up.
Jason almost died. Wow.
Yeah, and I asked Scott, I'm like, how good's our workman's comp?
What's your favorite camera? What camera are you?
My favorite camera.
Still and video, if you want to go into.
Yeah, I got two cameras. The Canon R6, I love it.
Okay.
That's why I'm taking my photography and video. The class I just did in Santorini, I used the R6.
Okay.
For video.
Okay.
So I'm shooting 24 frames a second, 4K, and I can't say enough about. I'm doing the wide DR, so it's like it gives me a little room in color correction.
Okay.
So everything looks a little flat, but it's great. And that works great on mobile, on the run, because it's super lightweight. I can also take pictures with it, so I can record and take still.
Okay,
right?
yeah,
right
that's
away.
Ideal, yeah.
So I don't have to break it down and get my other camera out. And then I've been using that with the iPhone, which I was fighting using the iPhone, but you can't go. It looks so good.
Yeah.
I can't fight it anymore. It is, and it's so convenient. So I'd shoot with the R6, and then something would happen. I have my iPhone with me. I'm like, boom, and I record on that.
Yeah, easy.
And then I like in studio we just got the Canon C70s.
Okay.
We got two of them. Amazing cameras, never overheat, run all day. They do more stuff than I even know what to do with.
Mirrorless.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got the adapter, so you can use your old EF lenses, and actually gain a stop. So we got an adapter, so it has a glass piece in it, so you get an extra stop.
Wow. Okay.
Of light, and then
how can the listeners follow your work and stay updated on some of your projects?
Well, our website's KelbyOne.com, so anything on there is I had my hands on.
Okay.
That's it. Basically, I mean, my social media, I got a Facebook page and Instagram.
You're always posting your photos from your trips.
Yep.
It'll say like Jason Stevens is in Greece, and I'll be like, wait a minute, I just talked to him yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, JasonRalphStevens.com is my website.
Okay.
And then
that's like where they can follow your work.
Yeah, I got some
some
photos on there, and then Jason Ralph Stevens is my Facebook, and Instagram is Jason Ralph Stevens also.
Awesome.
Which I would love more Instagram followers. It's tough lately. I felt like I got a little push when I was on The Grid, which we do a podcast too.
Yeah.
It's called The Grid.
Yeah.
I got this little jump in followers, but then I don't know if Instagram just is like, we know you work for them.
Yeah, it's so...
I almost feel like that's why it is. No, that's over. We're almost 600 episodes.
Oh wow, that's
great.
That's
big.
Yeah,
so
it's live.
Scott's done that for years and years. I've been working there for 6 years now.
Okay.
Be professional too. I mean, we had some interviews and they came in and I know it's all hip to be cool, but dress up a little bit for an interview. Do the old school stuff to get a job.
Yeah.
Have a proper resume. Come in with a tie. Look me in the eye, shake my hand.
That is good advice.
Yeah. Because it does. It seems like I've seen people, I don't even necessarily say younger because it didn't even have to be younger, but people have gotten to the point where like, oh, I'm just going to wear a T-shirt in and wing this.
Who does that?
And
right?
I'm like, well, that's not
make
me want to hire you.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
you got to be professional all the way. And you got to be really careful about your social media.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
people are going the minute you have a job interview, you bet that people are looking at your
Yep.
Facebook page.
I will not say the company, but I've been there where I actually walked in on the marketing department going deep into people's social media just to find if there's anything they would flag.
Yeah.
Deep. Like, we're not talking like your last week. We're talking like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that happens. It's not supposed to happen, but it does.
Yeah. So yeah, it sticks with you.
Yep.
So be careful what you post on social media because
Yeah. And any sort of, I'm not saying you can't have an opinion or express your views, but be careful how you do it and where you do it.
yeah, absolutely,
Because those are type of things that if someone disagreed, just for example, if someone disagreed with you, they're like, oh, I don't agree with this particular point, and then you don't get the job.
I don't think we're going to get along,
Right.
because of their views.
And I'm not saying, again, that's a touchy thing. I know it is, because you want to be able to express your views. It's a free country. But at the same time, if you're looking for a job, then that's something to consider.
Yeah. All right, Jason, thanks for being with us.
Yes.
We had a whole hour conversation here, jam-packed with information. Follow us on YouTube at Tampa Bay Community Network. We're also on Facebook. And come and check us out. Come take some classes here. We offer free classes for residents of Hillsborough County, Florida.
Nice.
So, all right, Jason, thanks for being with us.
Yep, thank you.
See you soon.